Welcome to the Tavern Between Dimensions, a monthly tabletop RPG podcast. My name is Carl Dudesh, and I shall be your bartender for this evening. Joining me for service, as always, is the Dungeon Master to the Explorers of Elsewhere, Dan Tyree.
Hello.
And Kratos' bodyguard, Anton Bain.
Correct. Hello.
And because one of the dimensions is having a festival, we've needed to get a little bit of extra help in the tavern today. So helping us for service is our good friend, BirdieMaps.
Hello.
For those who don't know who you are, Birdie, do you mind just giving the audience a little something about who you are?
I came from far land and I'm a wizard who's creating magical worlds. And I came to this festival to introduce myself as BirdieMaps. I have created whole countries, cities, and towns. In real life, I'm a map creator, always known as BirdieMaps, and I work on mostly battle maps with huge detail and huge scale, so every adventurer can fight hard on these maps.
Amazing.
And the Explorers of Elsewhere channel has been using some of your maps as well. We've seen them all their glory, and we have been eternally thankful for you giving them to us.
That's been great.
At the end, we will tell you how you can help Birdie and get a hold of their maps. Right, the doors of the tavern are opening, so I think we should go into our first segment. So we're going to be doing things a little bit different today. Normally we would have started with BYOB, but because we have a little bit of help here in the tavern, we're actually going to do a different segment called The Guest Ale, where we give our guests the floor and we talk about them. So, BirdieMaps, you are a cartographer extraordinaire. What got you started into it, and what can you tell us a bit about map making?
Well, it started around 1 year ago when I wanted to offer my players the opportunity to build their own personal dungeon. And it's far easier if the dungeon gets built from time to time and expanded with new floors, new extensions. I wasn't able to find any good map for this purpose. So I started creating my own maps. And since I'm a little bit experienced due to modding for other games, I knew that I have a little bit of talent here and created more and more maps. And from time to time, one of my friends said, well, those maps are looking that awesome, you should do it professionally. And that's how I ended up here.
Sweet. That's pretty cool.
Well, they are very, very good.
Interestingly, the way that kind of BirdieMaps came into our lives, I was kind of looking through some Instagram messages, and a fellow Cormier DM popped up and decided to say hello. I mean, I'll be honest, I was pretty struck that you kind of reached out. I was really, really grateful. And then, looking like through your portfolio, I was just blown away with the detail of it all. Because it dawned on me that you were using the same kind of software that I use, but significantly better.
What software is that?
The software I use is Dungeon Draft. Maybe some of you know it. It's very famous out there, but I have worked with many other software tools like Incarnate, Dungeon Maker Studio, and all the ones that are free online.
Yeah.
But in the end, I stuck with Dungeon Draft because it's easy to handle and you have many assets available online, and I even create my own assets from time to time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sometimes when I started, I was a little bit greedy and didn't want to pay for licenses, so I spent a month or so creating thousands of assets to expand my portfolio.
Is that like drawing textures and like actual drawing on a...
Yeah, correct. It's
software?
pixel art, some kind of.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
I would definitely recommend Dungeon Draft, but Incarnate is good as well for the basic purpose, and all the free map making software is a good starting point, but it's at a certain level you will definitely need to buy something. That's when Dungeon Draft and Incarnate comes handy in.
Yeah, I've used Incarnate in the past. I was very impressed by it, but I think when it came to Dungeon Draft, particularly my skill level, I was a little bit daunted by it, but when seeing other people do it, I have nothing but the utmost respect.
It's amazing what some other people can cast with it.
How many maps have you created since the start?
I haven't counted, but I have finished for my Patreon account like 90 maps.
Wow.
And that's not including the map packs, so I should be around 100 or 120 by now.
That's amazing. And like, how long does a map take? Like, I've got no idea. Is it like 5 minutes or is it 5 hours?
When I started creating maps with Dungeon Draft, it took me hours.
Yeah.
Like, depending on the size, let's say basic size 30 by 30, it took me like 3 or 4 hours to create a basic forest. And by now I have learned to create as many prefabs as possible, and I can do an 80 by 80 map in like 4 hours or so.
Oh, wow.
That's the normal time.
Yeah, and you said you specialized in making larger maps, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty simple because all the maps I found online are too small. My players, especially the rangers with a longbow, want to keep their distance.
Or the monks that like to run away.
Yeah, for sure. Some of my maps are specially designed for chases, for example. And they are pretty long in one dimension, and you can really run into any obstacle on the way.
Yeah, like a good chase map is so hard to find.
Yeah, definitely.
Like one that's like, what, 20 wide and then like 300 long? Is that a thing? Can you do that?
Maximum per cells is 120
Okay.
times 5, so more than 500 feet.
Oh, wow.
600 feet, yeah.
And I have done, it was a hill map, a mountain map, and it has serpentines. So it was far longer. Measured, it was around 1,000 feet, whole distance you can travel. Very fun session, I have to admit.
I must admit, every time I've kind of picked up a map, because I've used a couple of the maps already in the Cormier campaign over on the Explorers of Elseworld channel, and yeah, I'm just kind of like, I'll load it and then kind of forget the scale of it all, because I'll find myself just being able to kind of zoom in. So there's a Suez map that you made recently that is 80 by 80, but it just didn't dawn on me. There was a part of me that thought, I can't load this in as is because it'll break their computers. But yeah, I was absolutely blown away, because if nothing else, on such a big scale, the finite kind of micro detail that you have on the maps, I find that having like a good visual representation in like a map is super important. I mean, it's, some people say it's not a compulsory thing for D&D, but especially on like virtual tabletops, it really, really helps to immerse the players, gives everyone a very clear and engaging common visual point. And
what I really like is when the story like matches the map. It's like when there's an arcane focus in center map, it's there. It's not like an empty room and you have to like imagine it. And that's always quite impressive. It's like, okay, well, the map was like made for this story, made for this campaign. And that's usually really cool. And I guess that's something you do quite often, Birdie, right?
Yeah, that's a big difference when I started making it commercially. When I started to do it with Patreon, I had in focus that not all players do need a hurricane right in the middle of the map. It's something that special you need once per campaign or so.
Yeah.
And I want to keep the focus on the basic maps, like forest, roads, something you stumble across all the campaigns like 5 or 6 times. And for some special reasons, I have made for my campaigns special maps like a fallen city or so. Something that's in Cormier as well.
Yeah, we enjoyed a few of those.
It's a shame because one of my campaigns that I had to give up maps because the very thing that you said, it's trying to find that right one, and you never find that map that fits, as Anton said, the story. And it's a shame because not many of those exist out there that really just match that idea that you have. I mean, had I known that your maps existed, I might have been using them for that campaign, or even asked from some special ones here and there. But that was always the issue: find the map that matched that tone or anything that I wanted, because they're always so generic. And I think with what we've been impressed with your maps is they're not, you can barely call them generic. They are super detailed, super themed, just everything about them. You'll find a lot of us are just clicking around a lot of the time, just having a look at the map while Dan is talking, and it's like, what do you do in your turn? What? Sorry, I was just looking at this intricate spider web down here in the corner. What was the question again, Dan?
I think the superpower that I realise you must have, I know we've just been talking about how it's really good when the map matches the story, but I've noticed kind of looking through some of yours. So, for example, I've been, for one reason or another, I've been looking at your Myth Draenor maps. Your maps, I find them inspiring enough that they're creating the story rather than the other way around.
Cool.
Thanks. That's the whole purpose I want to achieve with my maps, that you can walk around the map and see little stories within. I've once made a festival map And if you follow the footsteps, you can find a drunk dwarf who's drunk himself into a coma in the corner of a barn.
Is it kind of
So
like where's
you can
Waldo?
see that
Yeah.
he walked through the arena, he stumbled again, he lost his bottle on the floor, there's wine spilled over. He walks with very, very curvy lines to the wine stand, bought a new bottle, peed in the corner, and then fall down, burping on the whole floor.
That's very cool.
Wow.
That's
And-
just the little stories I want to tell.
Birdie, what is the kind of design process? Like, where does the inspiration come from? And then what is the first step in like creating a map?
When I do for my campaigns, the designing process, I think of the major plot that's going to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, it's an eye-catcher moment like the Fallen City I talked about,
Yes.
which is made up the center of the map. And from that point, I design this special scene and go with the other parts of the map, exterior, foliage, and then expand throughout. But for generic maps, I have a very simple concept. I start with the ground layer, just the terrain, and I think about the history of the map. So what's happening in our world is that first geological processes comes in. So if there was an earthquake or so, then the terrain is lifted on one side. The next step is adding the biological part. Foliage, stones, rocks, trees, and so. And after that, I start designing the roads and houses. How they are placed depends on the environment. And I try to evolve the map. Basically, if you would look at my dungeon draft files, you can remove all the houses and have a clean, generic forest map, for example.
Right.
Oh, wow. So you can strip it right back to nature, basically.
Yeah, basically. And what I also think of is I prefer making maps more practical than realistic. For example, houses. In a normal medieval city, houses would be 2 stories, and you have they are mostly empty, and there's nothing special to see here. And for the practical use, I prefer squeezing it down to 1 layer as possible, or maximum another layer, and put a bedroom, sleeping area, recreational room, kitchen, all in 1 area.
One open plan area, yeah.
Yeah, so the whole map is good for use in Foundry or Roll20. That's my main software I use for playing.
Do you have any sort of educational knowledge in this one? Did you study history, architecture, or even sort of nature studies? Does any of that sort of dictate it, or is this purely imagination that drives all of this?
I'm a very natural person. I like to go climbing in the mountains, so I see very much of those areas. Most of the time, I am using my biological background. I study biology, so I something to know here. And the other source is Reddit, Instagram, and fantasy wallpapers is my most Googled search term.
Okay. That can be the inspiration for a map.
If somebody would like to start with map making, I would say start small. Don't set yourself a 120 by 120 map at the beginning. It's so time consuming if you start with it. Just go small, 50 by 15, 30 by 30 or so. That's absolute limit. And try to recreate a map you found online, or try to recreate an image you found online.
Okay.
And you can hang on this and expand your wisdom in this point. Another thing I would mention is don't make rectangle houses. It's something I hate to see in online maps, that all houses are straight rectangle. It's not possible to do this.
Are they not meant to be rectangle? What shape are they meant to be?
Not pure rectangles. So sometimes it's 70 degrees, and another time it's 99. If you look closely at my maps, you see that most buildings don't have rectangles inside it.
Okay.
And that's making the map living. That's the next thing I would say, that make your maps feel like they are alive.
Asymmetry in a lot of things. It's that touch between not looking right and looking perfect. Just the asymmetry with things, because symmetry confuses the brain, but asymmetry yeah, exactly, asymmetry changes things. So I can understand what Birdie means. Like, if you have things of perfect rectangles, you're just going to look at it and be like, something in your head's going to tell you it's wrong, but if it's slightly asymmetrical, you're more accepting of it. I know that's a fact in a lot of art things. Asymmetry is key.
Yeah, totally.
Birdie, what is your favorite map?
Oh, My favorite map. I have so many favorite maps.
Okay.
Maps I have done or
Yeah.
overall?
The ones you've
Well-
done, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could spoil a little bit because I'm working on a masterpiece right now.
Masterpiece.
A masterpiece. It's Flying City.
Ooh.
120 by 120.
Ooh.
The first layer is done already, and I love how it came out. I can share it with you, of all of you, but I haven't uploaded it.
Okay,
So,
that sounds amazing. I think Dan
Sounds
might use it
incredible.
for the flying netherese cities. That's yeah, you might have to talk. We'll talk with him about it. That might
I
just
can
happen.
neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually the background of this map. It's a flying netherese city with the
Yes.
big Mythala in the core of the mountain, the upside-down
nice.
mountain.
So what drove you into doing things like Patreon and commercializing your maps and becoming a commercial cartographer, if you will?
Many reasons. First of all, since I'm a student, I have to somehow pay my bills.
It's true.
And it was the easiest way for me doing it because I love doing maps. It was a hobby of mine, and from the hobby, I started to get money. And I think you're not able to start creating something creative commercially if it's not something that makes you joy. It's fun.
That's really, really cool.
You're living the dream at that point, aren't you? When the thing that you love doing pays you.
Absolutely. I have a few patrons who are always giving me some feedback to the maps and are asking for variants of the maps, and I love to see those maps in action, at least by reading about it. So that somebody else has fun with the map and develops a story on them. It's amazing to feel. It's like cooking for me. Cooking alone is okay, but sharing your cooked food is the best moment ever, if it tastes good.
That's a good way of seeing it. Yeah. So you're a map cook, essentially.
So, in terms of your Patreon, for those who are interested in kind of signing up, what's being offered as part of your Patreon? Like, what's available on the various tiers?
The tiers are depending on how you play, actually. I decided to change it from time to time, and now I stick to the current plan. That's the 3 tiers, actually. The Adventurer tier, which is the cheapest one, and it's meant for people who are playing in real life that are not infected by the pandemic. So those maps are best for printing. The second tier is for all those who play online and want to create their own stuff on it, well, the walls, the lighting, and itself. And the fourth tier is the watermark-free versions, because the virtual tabletop files I export are always without the watermark, and that's why. And the other 2 tiers are with custom commissions every month. So if
nice.
you're
Okay.
mage tier, you can each month order a 30 by 30 map for your campaign. On Archmage, it's a larger map.
Amazing. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think going back to what we were saying earlier, just having such an evocative map that is custom made is it's incredible. I can promise you that I will be discreetly approaching you in the future for some things that I have coming up.
Just go with it.
You're playing the same Cormier style campaign, so there might be similar themes going around there. So you can share secrets
Absolutely.
about that.
One thing I want to mention for becoming commercial is keep in mind that you have to advertise your maps. And I haven't expected it to be so much of a work. Just creating the additional maps or versions of the maps for Reddit, one for Instagram, and post it every 3rd day or at least once per week, so the algorithm is on your side. It's like half of the work I do is just socializing.
Social
Engaging
media.
with the community and posting all the time, and that's the most annoying part of it. I would like to outsource it sometime.
You probably want a holiday on one of your maps, or design yourself a nice beachfront to rest on. Take a break every now and again, right?
That's what I actually do. I work like 20 maps or so ahead right now. So I could lean back and wait until July and have everything readied up. But that's because I'm working on my master thesis and I want to have as much time for that without having the negative effects of not posting every day.
You've got a little stockpile of maps nice and ready. That's very cool.
Yeah, totally. So
I wish I could be that efficient.
as I said, I have like ready 90 maps, and my Patreon is on map 60.
Wow.
So 30 maps ahead of time.
Crikey.
So Hopefully you'll be seeing much more of Birdie's maps in the Cormier campaign. Obviously, if you are interested in joining their Patreon, we'll make sure to give you the information down below and at the end of the podcast or video. I think it's time we move on. Thanks for watching. We release segments like this from the Tavern Between Dimensions every Friday here on the Explorers of Elsewhere channel. Otherwise, if you want to listen to the episode in full, you can check us out on Spotify and Amazon Music.